On today's episode of Locked On Wild, when you're looking to be a contender, the phrase is all in no matter what. Well, if Bill Guerin is thinking about dangling Jesper Wallstedt to try to get a game-changing player in addition to Quinn Hughes, that might be a little too expensive for my taste.
Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
Hey, this is Marcus Foligno, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm Seth Topal. Welcome to Locked On Wild, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Locked On Wild is your daily Minnesota Wild podcast. We are your team each and every day, and we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on all of your favorite audio platforms and on YouTube so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your Profit Boost pack every NFL playoff game day. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we will discuss why some prices may be too expensive and why it would be a good idea for the Wild to avoid trading Jesper Wallstedt in a trade as much as they possibly can. We'll also take a look at a couple of depth players who have started to go cold offensively. We'll look at why Vladimir Tarasenko's production has tailed off, and Marcus Johansson, off to a great start this year. His numbers have started to dry up as well. We'll take a look at the reasons why those players have gone a little cold here in 2026. My name is Seth Topal, host of Locked On Wild, credentialed media member, and host of the show since 2021. Now, I want to preface right off the bat, we don't have any indication that Bill Guerin is thinking about this, but in Michael Russo's latest article, it certainly was an intriguing thought, because you would expect with the Minnesota Wilds getting Quinn Hughes and being the third best team in the NHL as far as points go, now with the jockeying on a nightly basis, they are still battling with the likes of the Carolina Hurricanes and others as far as points go. But the Minnesota Wild are one of the top teams in the entire NHL as far as points go. However, their play has started to kind of come back to earth a little bit. The Wild are 2-2-2 in January. They are 4-6 in their last 10 games. And they are keeping pace with the Dallas Stars because the Dallas Stars are 2-8 in their last 10 games. So teams starting to kind of come back down to earth a little bit, which means that there's more question as to what Bill Guerin is going to do to further this Minnesota Wild roster. The expectation is that he's not done. The expectation is that he's going to make another trade to try to help supplement this roster, especially after the injury to Joel Eriksson Ek. We'll get more elaboration on Ek's status for tomorrow against the Winnipeg Jets in morning skate. So we'll have an update for you before tomorrow night's game. Of course, a reminder as well, we've got Denny's show at 6 o'clock, leading you right up to Minnesota Wild hockey. So keep that in mind for tomorrow, 6 p.m. for Denny's show. But we'll sneak in an episode in the afternoon with X status ahead of the game against the Jets. But with that being said, X injury and the recent play by this Minnesota Wild team have kind of further underscored, hey, let's go get another move done. Now, there are other factors at play as to making those moves, but even though the New York Rangers are 8 points out of a playoff spot right now, they look better than dead. They just lost to the Ottawa Senators 8-4. They are 2-6-2 in their last 10. They've lost 5 in a row. They have now the fewest points in the Eastern Conference, and they have played the most games in the entirety of the NHL. They're dead. The New York Rangers are dead. They're beyond dead. So that this may be an opportunity for the Wild to start to really prod the Rangers, especially as it looks like they are in need of massive changes. But that's why we haven't seen that second move, is because so many teams are in contention, which leads you to the point that we're at right now. You may have to offer up a little more to convince teams that they're out of it. And in Russo and Joe Smith, in their latest article, said that at this point, pretty much everything on the table as far as prospects and picks go. And Russo wondered if the Wild may consider, if Bill Guerin may consider, his ace of spades, his ace in the deck. Would the Minnesota Wild consider trading Jesper Wallstedt to get a true 1C or a massive top 6 upgrade? And my thoughts on this, everydayers know I have adopted this as kind of my creed. If you are in your true contention window, every available asset that you have should go to maximizing that window while it exists. That's why we saw Marco Rossi, Yves Boyum, Liam Ogren all sent to Vancouver for Quinn Hughes. The expectation around the league, not just here in Minnesota, is that Bill Guerin is going to try to pull off another big trade to add a missing piece at the top of the lineup to further bolster this team that is currently just 2 points back of the Dallas Stars. They are 13 points back of the Colorado Avalanche right now. They have beaten the Avalanche this year. The expectation is that the Wild are going to try to do something to push themselves past Dallas to take that 2 spot in the West, to at least give themselves home ice advantage in round number 1. Now, you have to give something up to get something, obviously. And Jesper is enough of an intriguing prospect that he would bring you a big haul in return. But where it's one thing to trade a player like Yves Boyum, who the parallel made in the article is spot on. We all thought Yves Boyum was untouchable. And the parallel made, is that Quinn Hughes and Yves Boyum play the same position. So you're upgrading in the short term that position in a massive way. While Yves was an uber-talented defenseman, he's still very young, still has to develop into being a regular NHL defenseman. So you're getting a massive upgrade in the short term, which the Wild did by getting Quinn Hughes. And let's say you go find a 1C. That's a huge upgrade right now for your roster. And you have Philip Gustafsson locked in through the 2031 season. Gus has certainly had a number of starts that certainly put him near the top of the list as far as goalies go in that category. In fact, if we just pull back to the 2022 season and look at the numbers for Gus since he kind of emerged on the scene, from a goalie perspective, Philip Gustafsson is currently 14th in the NHL in wins with 87. In 170 starts, Connor Hellebuck in that same span has 214. Some of the top goalies in the league have 200. So that's 30 fewer starts that he's made, and he still is 14th in the league in wins. Now, as far as the other peripheral numbers go, he is much higher on the list than that as far as save percentage goes. He is just behind some of the big regulars. He is in the top 5 in save percentage. He's behind Linus Ullmark and Philip Gustafsson for that. And as far as goals against average in that same span, well, he's behind Connor Hellebuck, Linus Ullmark, Andrei Vasilevsky, and a couple of others. But that's it. So he has played like a number one guy since he got the position. But trading Jesper Wallstedt is one of those situations I would need major assurances if I was even going to be comfortable doing that. I would need major assurances as to what was coming back in return. It would need to be a 1C. It could not be somebody that played a second line and could bump up if needed. It would have to be a tried and true 1C. Have to be. Unquestioned. And it would have to be somebody that has term. It would have to be somebody that you were getting for more than just a year and a half or 2 years. It would have to be somebody that was under large amounts of control. This is where Jack Hughes comes back into the picture. He is under control at $8 million per, $8-ish million per, until after the 2031 season. A player of that caliber. I don't know Jack Hughes per se because he's more of a wing than a center. He looked very good against the Minnesota Wilds in their most recent game Monday night against the Devils. He looked very good. It would have to be someone with term, and it would have to be someone that finally ended is he a 1C or is he a 2? Those would have to be guaranteed if you were going to move a guy like that, because we have seen a flash, we've seen a glimmer of what Jesper could bring to the table as one of the up-and-coming goalies in the league. That would be massively hard to part with if I'm a Minnesota Wild fan. And so the return, if you were going to do it, would have to be unquestioned. And even then, it would still bring up major concerns. So, as the search continues for another player to add to this mix, honestly, I maybe am going after 2 centers. Call me crazy. If you can find a way to get somebody at the top of the lineup, I would even consider making a swing for somebody at the bottom of the lineup too. Because I don't know. Now, the lineup certainly would change. You'd be looking at moving Danila Yurov, assuming he wasn't included in a trade. You'd be looking to move him down in the lineup, so that might fix itself. But I'm not sold on third line center either. So it'd be nice to get a little center depth, especially before the Olympic break, because we're all wondering what's going to happen during the Olympic break as far as the injuries go. Definite concerns there. But we're starting to see some teams kind of settle to the bottom. After what I saw against the Ottawa, between the Rangers and the Senators, if I'm Bill Guerin, I'm calling aggressively to try to see what is available, who is available, and get a dialogue going. Maybe you can get in on the front end there too. But the point being, the higher up the lineup you're trying to fill, the more it's going to cost to do so. And at some point, it may become too much to ask. So Bill Guerin's got to really look deep at this. And he has to be absolutely certain. You can't guess on this. If you're looking at something, if you're looking at a move of that caliber, you can't guess. You have to be rock solid certain that it's going to pay off and it's going to do the job. I want to transition to talking about a couple of players that their production started to tail off a little bit. Vladimir Tarasenko and Marcus Johansson. And it feels like it's kind of for different reasons. So we'll take a look at the 2 reliable depth pieces that now have started to go cold. We'll discuss all that as we continue today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Quo. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. Sure enough, there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you are not just working cleaner, you are creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal, and it works right from your phone or computer and can even keep your existing number. It's no surprise Quo is the number one rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNHL. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNHL. Quo. No missed calls, no missed customers. Welcome back to today's edition of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. And if you're looking for a new level of Locked On experience, may I introduce you to the Everydayer Club and Locked On All Access. The Everydayer Club brings you ad-free editions of your favorite Locked On shows. In this case, Locked On Wild, plus access to the all-new Locked On Discord server where you can interact with all of your favorite shows all throughout the week. The All Access tier features additional exclusive content that goes even further into the Minnesota Wild organization than we do on Locked On Wild, and you get an opportunity to go one-on-one texting with yours truly. You can find information on both the All Access tier and the Everydayer Club in the show notes. Click the link to find out more in both cases. A reminder that Denny's show will be coming your way at 6 p.m. as we circle in on more trade opportunities for the Minnesota Wild. We will also take a look at recent play for the team, and Denny will share some concerns that have started to sprout up for this team over the last few weeks. So 6 p.m. right here on YouTube, and make sure to join us. Nice little pregame before the game against the Winnipeg Jets. So Vladimir Tarasenko, I want to start with him because it felt like we finally kind of unlocked Tarasenko throughout the month of December, as he finished the month with 6 goals, 10 total points. He had 30 shots on goal in that span. He was playing roughly 15 minutes per night on ice, but usually settled in around 14, 15 a night. And then we flip to January. So far in the month of January, no points for Tarasenko, 9 total shots on goal, and he's playing roughly 13 minutes, 29 seconds per night on the ice. So what changed? What gives? Well, one big thing that happened about midway through the month was the return of Matt Zuccarello. And actually, you can pinpoint it to the very moment that Zuccarello returned to the lineup. So Matt Zuccarello came back to the lineup in December, and he had a stretch of games that he was out, and then finally kind of popped back in. His games played this season, he played on the played up to December 8th, and then did not play again until the 20th. So he missed about 2 weeks right in the middle of the month of December. And you look at Tarasenko's production from the time that Zuccarello got injured, which was in the December 8th game against Seattle. Left that game on the 8th after the hit by Vince Dunn. Tarasenko scored in that game, by the way. And if you look at what Tarasenko did from the 8th to the 20th, he scored 4 goals in that span. And he also had 4 other assists. So he had 8 points from December 8th to December 20th when Matt Zuccarello came back. Since, Tarasenko has had 1 point. He has had 1 goal. That was against the San Jose Sharks on New Year's Eve. And you look production-wise, Tarasenko has played over 14 minutes 1 time. That was against the Los Angeles Kings back on January 5th. He has been dropped back down in the lineup because, let's face it, Zuccarello back in. Kirill Kaprizov is going to be his line mate. And if you look at Monday's game against the Devils, the most common spot in the lineup that Vladimir Tarasenko played was on a line with Marcus Foligno and Nico Sturm. Sounds awfully similar to what he was doing for the Detroit Red Wings, no? Where he's playing lower in the lineup, playing a third line role, and that's typically more of a defensive checking type role, as opposed to putting the offense forward. If I go back to, let's go to the next game after Zuccarello got injured, which would be the game against the Dallas Stars. That was December 11th. And that game, Tarasenko had 2 assists. The Wild beat the Dallas Stars by a score of 5-2 in that game. And Tarasenko played on a line with Kirill Kaprizov and Danila Yurov. That line scored a couple of times, but because Zuccarello was out, Tarasenko also got some power play time in that game. And he assisted, if I recall correctly, he assisted on a power play goal in that game. Yes, he sure did. He assisted on Zach Bogosian's goal, and then he assisted on an empty netter for Marcus Johansson. But he was much more engaged, much more active in that game because he was playing in an elevated role in the lineup. Played just under 18 minutes, and score sheet was completely full. So I'm actually going to. I'm wondering what the solution is here, because he produced when paired with Kirill Kaprizov, as you would expect, but the production since has dropped off because you're playing with guys like Foligno, like Nico Sturm. I think you gotta put Nico Sturm, Marcus Foligno, and Yakov Trenyan together and just staple that line combination together. I think that line combination works as a 4th line. You gotta find the way to get the pieces put together for that 3rd. And at this point, like looking at Matt Zuccarello's production since he came back into the lineup on the 20th, the points are there. The production is just, the top line production has just been just kind of off. Zuccarello has 9 points in the 12 games that he has played since he returned, but he's also a -2 in that span. So I don't know what the answer is, but it is clear that the production has dried up now that Tarasenko has moved to a third line role. And he's not alone, because Marcus Johansson's numbers have started to dry up a little bit as well. So we're going to talk about Johansson's production drop and try to figure out what makes sense for both of them. What is the best option for both Vladimir Tarasenko and Marcus Johansson on this roster? We will discuss as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by Factor. New year, big goals, and somehow even less time to cook. If you're trying to eat better but don't want to spend hours grocery shopping or meal prepping, Factor makes it easy. These are fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs so you can eat well without all the work. Factor meals are made with quality, functional ingredients, lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole foods, and healthy fats. No refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, and no refined seed oils. Just real food that fits your goals, whether that's eating healthier, managing calories, or getting more protein. My favorite part about Factor meals, there are over 100 rotating meals each week, including different catered diets such as high protein, calorie smart, Mediterranean, and even GLP-1 support options. The meals are always fresh, never frozen, and they're ready in just 2 minutes. So you get home from work, in the time it takes for you to go through the mail, put your shoes away, and take off your tie, your dinner's done. Factor is ready to go. So head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off and use code LockedOnNHL50 off to get 50% off your first Factor box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off. Code LockedOnNHL50 off. Make eating healthy easy with Factor. Final segment of today's episode of Locked on Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, make sure to like and subscribe. Give us a like on YouTube. And if you're listening on audio platforms, make sure to give us a 5-star, especially on Apple. It helps with the circulation of the show. And we will give you a shout out if you give us a review on Apple. We appreciate all of the support from everyone that tunes in on a daily basis as the show continues to grow. So taking a look at a couple of players whose production has started to dip a little bit. And looking now at Marcus Johansson, who is kind of in a similar spot to where Vladimir Tarasenko's at. So Johansson in the month of December, he had 12 total points. He had 4 goals in that span. 22 shots on goal. And, you know, Johansson is just not going to be a high volume shot type guy. He's a rush guy. He is a crash the net. When he's working at his best, he crashes the net. He gets in close goals, but it allows him to move around, use his speed. So far in the month of January, 1 point for Johansson, and that was in the most recent game on Monday against the Devils. 6 shots on goal. But I think with Johansson, we're seeing a little bit of the return to what he has been over the last couple of years. Is a guy who just, is good if you are able to if you're able to do flybys in the zone, is where Johansson's at his best. You pick the puck up in transition, you crash into the offensive zone. Somebody's able to hit him maybe on a cross zone feed as he is breaking towards the net, and he's able to tap one past the goalie. If you are really having to do some of the extra stuff like the board battles, the fighting for the puck, that's not his game. And I think we are seeing the effect of losing Joel Eriksson Ek on that second line. The product just does not look the same. Now, that affects Matt Boldy as well. And it's interesting because if you look at the underlying numbers in the game on Monday, in which the second line combination was Matt Boldy, Marcus Johansson, and Ryan Hartman, the underlying numbers actually looked pretty good. That line combination ended up with an expected goals on the night. They had an expected goals percentage of 81.8%. A Corsi for percentage of 62.5%. They outshot the Devils in actual shots on goal 5-2. They out attempted the Devils 14-7 while they were on the ice. And they were responsible for the lone 5-on-5 goal throughout the course of the night. So based on the underlying stats, that line combination worked, but I don't think success-wise, I don't think that combination obviously is going to have staying power. As far as the numbers for the season go, we're talking actual goals for the Minnesota Wild. Their most successful line this season, far and away, has been Marcus Johansson, Matt Boldy, Joel Eriksson Ek. In 30 games played together this season, they have scored 17 goals for, 3 goals against. That's a 3.98 goals for per 60 minutes, 0.7 goals against, 0.7 goals against per 60 minutes. They have far and away been the most dominant line that the Wild have so far this season. And so if you're looking for one combination that you don't really mess with, that's the one. That's the combination that you just set it and forget it. The hope being that Johansson's production will start to pick back up when Joel Eriksson Ek returns. And so that combination can go back to the things that they have been doing so far this year. They played 256 minutes together, and amongst line combinations that have played 250 minutes or more together in the entirety of the NHL, the Minnesota Wild have the best goals percentage of any team in the NHL from that line combination at 85%. Now, even though they have played about half as many minutes, they are 4th in the league, that combination, in goals scored with 17, 5-on-5. Lehkonen, McKinnon, Nietzsche has 34 goals. They've played 436 minutes together. Connor, Scheifele, Velarde has played 488 minutes together. They have 34 goals in 44 games. The goals percentage for the Avs line is 72.3. The goals percentage for the Jets line is 56.7. The goals percentage for the Johansson, Boldy, Eriksson Ek line is 85%. So that line combination has been better than those two lines in less time played together. Think about that. A line combination that has been better than those two lines as far as the percentage of time that a goal is scored when they are on the ice. So that should be a big goal, is to get that line combination back together, and that gives you wiggle room to make some changes to that top line. To go get somebody that can play on that line, depending on what the ask is as far as a return. And as far as the how do we get Vladimir Tarasenko going? Well, if you find a way to get Foligno and start, and if you then if you bump Danil Yurov down to the third, then if you can find another offensively capable line partner to play with Tarasenko and Yurov, you might have something cooking there for a third line. But the focus needs to be trying to get Johansson, Boldy, Eriksson Ek back together and back on the ice. That has been your breadwinner line so far this year. The hope is that Bill Guerin will do something to get somebody with Kirill that will give them the two lethal scoring lines together. And then you've got your shot. Then you are ready to go to make your move to try to go take the whole thing. So we'll continue to keep an eye on trade scenarios. Denny has some more that he has cooked up that will be on the show tomorrow at 6, right before the Wild take on the Winnipeg Jets. So keep that all in mind, and we'll keep an eye on the trades for you as we move closer to the deadline, which is there's going to be one before the Olympics, which is just about 3 weeks away. So we're getting there. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked on Wild. Now that your first listen of the day is done, make sure that you check out the Locked on NHL channel for game night on Locked on NHL, a recap of all of the game action, all the exciting goals, all the big talkers. Locked on NHL for NHL game night on Locked on NHL. Make sure to follow Locked on Wild on all of your favorite social media platforms as well. Coming up for you on tomorrow's show, we will give you an update on Joel Eriksson Ek's status, as well as previewing the game against the Winnipeg Jets. The suddenly back Winnipeg Jets, we'll discuss. And make sure, if you are looking to join the Everydayer Club or the All Access tier, to check out the show notes in today's episode. For those of you on video, we'll send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure that your second listen is, again, NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL. We'll catch you for the next episode right here on Locked On Wild, your team every day.